That's the million-dollar question, but these are only $50,000 per unit. So we're very focused on how do we build something that is autonomous, hands-off, and then it can scale across large acreage across corn and soybeans.
Hello and welcome to Illinois Corn TV. I'm your host, Shane Gray. Today we're joined by a man who knows the robotics about agriculture. Taylor Wetli is joining us today. Taylor's the U.S. Commercial Manager for Solinftec, the global ag tech company behind the Solix Autonomous Sprayer. Got a lot of great information, a lot of neat questions to ask you, Taylor. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Shane. Excited to be here.
Good. Hey, right off the bat, because there's going to be people who are somewhat familiar with this, but not completely. Just give us a real quick rundown as to what products you have here and how they kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So just Solinftec in general, we're actually an ag technology company that's been around for close to 20 years. Our U.S. headquarters is here just across the border of Illinois and around that Lafayette, Indiana area. Product-wise, we have a couple products, one being our autonomous Solix robotics platform, and then our other one utilized by various ag retailers, even some ag retailers across Illinois, some grow marks and such, that is a fleet management tool. So we're continuing to scale both of those technologies and specifically putting a lot of our resources towards the autonomy space and growing that piece of our business.
How does this product of this autonomous sprayer, how does it tell the difference between, as it's going through the field, how's it telling a difference between what is a weed and what isn't a weed?
Yeah, so we use what we call our Alice AI in order to do that. And so basically what we've done is we've trained our algorithms to detect weeds amongst various crops, corn and soybeans being a couple of our main staple ones, specifically in the Midwest. And so what we have is essentially an autonomous scout and applicator, which is the Solix robot, maneuvering across the field with a 40-foot boom on the front, 8 cameras across those booms, and then each camera controls independent nozzles, 3 nozzles per camera. The software is running in real time and actually identifying where those weeds are. And so we've trained the algorithms on what a crop plant looks like at each crop stage, what it looks like in no-till and tillage and different soil types. Likewise with soybeans as well. And then we will actually spray everything that is not that crop. And so it's really an interesting progression. I'm seeing lots of different companies bringing technology like this to the market, but what we're very focused on is having a unit that's fully autonomous, solar powered, so it can run continuously across those fields and then can pick up and spray those weeds. In tandem, while it is maneuvering across those fields, it's understanding different agronomic measurements, stand count, skips, doubles. And so having a unit that's constantly at the field really allows for that really plant by plant level monitoring.
Well, I know that I've seen the product in person, but not actually at work. I've seen it at Commodity Classic where we stopped and talked to guys and taken a look at it. Watched videos, just interested to see how it's working. And to be honest, my first impression of it was like, well, it looks like a pretty simple machine going through the field, really. Doesn't look real complicated. I noticed there were some solar panels on the top, maybe that keep it generated. But I tell you, one of the things that I found most impressive, and that was the claim that it could save a farmer up to 90% of the actual product that they're using to keep the fields clean. So how do you speak to that?
Yeah, and so to more of the specifics of the equipment in general, we wanted to make something that was very simple in the field, something that the farmer can operate on. A lot of the sophistication and really complicated pieces that we built are on the software side. However, that user experience is simple. And then we just have a front wheel driven unit that maneuvers across the field with solar panels, as you mentioned. Those solar panels power a lithium ion battery, and then everything runs off that. So we're strategically solar because that allows it to be more autonomous. We don't want to be constantly going to the field, having to refill fuel, things like that.
So what kind of capacity does it have as it's doing its work?
So we only have a 56 gallon in total capacity on the unit, and you look at that, you think that doesn't seem like much, and it's really not a lot. But when you're utilizing this targeted application in the field, and we're seeing
Right.
some chem reduction up to high 90s, some it depends on that weed pressure. It can be more in the 70s,
Right.
but you're really just spraying much less product, and so we don't need as much on board. And so we have a dual tank system that runs single plumbing. So you're putting that same mix often that you would be spraying in the unit, and just spraying sometimes 90% less product. So that lighter unit also allows for lower compaction when it's then maneuvering across the field.
Is it really that simple? I mean, is it farmer friendly like it appears to be?
Well, it's like any technology. We're going into, let's see, our fourth year of commercial availability with the technology. And so early on, we were working very closely with the growers, because we were kind of, pulling some of those strings behind the scenes in tandem, working on how do we have, and getting their feedback, how do we have a user experience that actually can make sense on the farm. I think about on my family farm, like, if something is very complicated, it just doesn't get used often. It gets sat in the corner. So it has to be user friendly. And so that's something that's been a progression over the years. That's not to say in 23 it was perfect, but it has progressed drastically over these years, where now we can send a robot to a farmer, and they can implement this technology in tandem with us, early on, training them on how to operate the software, things like that. But it is really to a point now where it's user friendly enough that the farmer can manage it on their own, and it has to be. Otherwise, it's not going to be adopted. And so it just needs to be simple, and it needs to be user friendly and fit into the operation to ever really make sense.
Do you have a target farm in mind? Are you looking at a 1,000-acre farmer? Are you looking at a 10,000-acre farmer plus? I mean, what's your target maybe versus who is using this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get that a lot. What is the sweet spot of that farm size? And really, our answer is that it's not dependent on the farm size. It's more how many units. We're more of that fleet concept, really. So we want one of these per 300 to 400 acres. And so if you're a smaller farmer that just has 400 acres, one unit could make sense. If you're farming a couple thousand, you're going to consider maybe 4 or 5 units. And so even larger, you're having more of them. And so we're really are kind of flipping a lot of what we've thought about traditionally in the past on its head, and thinking about more of that fleet concept. And so you have one of these per set of acres you have. And with that, if you do have rain in a certain area of your footprint or your fields, 2 of them cannot be running, but maybe the other 6 are still running. And so that's kind of the beauty of a smaller autonomous robot is yes, it's smaller and it's not going across as many acres, but when you couple up multiple of them, the efficiencies are more comparable to one large unit.
Well, and I thought I had even read, because they're not real big, massive units that are out in the field, or at least what I saw. But I thought, it doesn't have to be if it's running 24/7, I guess, because I'm assuming even though it's solar, there should be enough energy stored up to where it can operate at nighttime or anything like that.
Yeah, we do have the capacity to operate at night. A lot of growers are not doing that based on different products being applied, but if there's products that make sense to be applied at night, they can be applied at night. And so that's really kind of the beauty of autonomy is you can start to think about opening that time window, and also optimizing, obviously, your personnel, your team's time, the farmer's time. But yeah, there's a much larger gap of time window that can now be utilized.
All right. And I know we were talking to, I don't know, I guess I could say salespeople there at Commodity Classic about these things. They were, a lot of the things that came out of their mouth was like early season spraying and things like that. I would say most people right here in the Midwest, are probably what they might call a 2-pass program when it comes to herbicide, maybe pre-emergence and then maybe, late May, early June, something like that. And it has the ability to cover both those first passes. I was wondering, even like a fungicide, is that something that you guys dabble with much, or is sometimes that crop too tall for it to handle?
Well, it's on the roadmap, Shane. So to the first part of the question, really, this technology is taken over once we have emergence, or even before emergence. It's just out there spraying the field. Even if it goes across an entire field and just sprays one weed, that's still success for us because you're not using fuel, you're not using as much chemistry, and then you're spraying those weeds early and often, which is the key concept. Don't allow that weed to continue to compete with the crop throughout the whole growing cycle. Often with a larger unit, we have to wait till it's a foot tall or 8 inches, whatever it may be. But we want to kind of be out there early and often and never let that water hemp get big. And so that's really the key concept there. And it's continue to focus on herbicides with applications, but now we're starting to think about, can we apply micros and biologicals with this? Can we spoon feed that to the plant? When you have something autonomous, you can start to think about multiple passes versus maybe something you were doing at once. And so we do have some limiting capacities, say for fungicide with a smaller tank capacity. But really the vision in the future is to also have units that are both smaller and larger that fit into this family of robots where we can have a small fleet of these that can do applications from herbicide to fungicide to micros.
How does a farmer get hooked up with an operation like this?
Yeah, we're selling direct to growers throughout the Midwest. We're in about a dozen states now, so there is a good amount running throughout Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and such. If a farmer is interested in learning more, they can reach out direct to me or via our website, solinftec.com, where we can have a further discussion about getting a unit out in their hands.
Do you? So it sounds like maybe if a farmer is interested in this, it's a piece of equipment that you're basically going to have to purchase. It's not like you could have your local fertilizer company say, hey, we've got 2 of these available if somebody wants to experiment with them. That's really not availability yet?
Well, actually, we do have some ag retail partners that provide it as a service as well. So we sell direct to growers. We work with universities as well as ag retailers. And so if they would like to, there's some ag retailers. AgView FS is one of our big partners. Simplot as well. So they have units, so they can be utilized as just a service from the retailer or purchased direct from us.
Does this technology play into any part of a new farm bill or any part of those conservation programs?
That's a great question. And we're actively engaged through a number of organizations, one of them Association of Equipment Manufacturers, where we're working together with companies such as C&H and Deere on a standard where it's a targeted application standard. And so some of that language, we're having conversations about being added to that. We were out in DC here last May and just talking to them, and had a robot out there talking with different regulators about this technology. And so I think in a number of ways we see this definitely playing a part in there. How it exactly plays out, your guess is as good as mine, but I definitely think precision ag is going to have a big place in the Farm Bill going forward.
For your guys or gals in the farm that are using this equipment, are you seeing more of a younger generation of farmers wanting to do this or be interested in it, or who are you seeing kind of showing a strong interest in this product?
Yeah, it's a good question again. I mean, we're seeing across pretty much the whole age group from young to old, and I think most people would think it's probably going to be a younger crowd. They're usually a little more tech savvy and such. And we do have a large sector of our customers that are like that, growers like that are maybe taking over a farm from dad or just interested in the technology. But at the same time, we have older farmers that are even close to retirement that are very interested in it and I think they have an interesting perspective. They've seen technology change. If you even think about a sprayer, I remember when I was a kid riding in a truck sprayer with my grandpa. He had it outfitted, 50-foot boom in the bed of his truck. And then we had pull-behind sprayers. Now we had self-propelled. Now we have cabless. And so those older folks really do understand this because they've seen it happen in their lifetime. And so we still get a lot of older farmers that are very interested in adopting the technology as well. So a little bit of both, honestly.
As I look at this stuff and I see all this as it's developing and becoming much more practical on the farm, I think to myself, the skill levels that we are going to be expecting of our future farmers compared to what we have today have completely changed. I taught for 25 years history, and one of the questions I used to ask some of our students was like, if you had to go to war, what qualities would you want in one of your soldiers? And, of course, they're picking the old school traditional. They want the Rambo type soldier and stuff like that. And then there was always that one person who who would say the name of a student who was like the valedictorian of the class. And I'm like, that's the one you want right there. I mean, we're not face-to-face combat anymore. And I think the same thing with this technology. You almost don't, it's not about being a big muscular hay baling man on the farm. I mean, this is, you need that tech suave person who's going to be out there, and someone who's highly educated on technology. And man, the face is changing incredibly, and you guys are a big part of that.
Yeah, and it does seem like that. And I don't think it's black and white. I think there's going to be a blend. Obviously, you need that agronomic knowledge coupled with that technology, but we view it as an opportunity. I mean, we talk with a lot of farmers from across the whole country that are having issues with labor. And, if you can, with this new technology, if you can attract in, people that maybe aren't even from the ag sector, but bring them into the ag economy and kind of couple that with agronomy, I think it's an opportunity to bring in more workforce there. So, but it is changing in some ways. Some things will change the same. I think it's an exciting time either way.
All right. Hey, Taylor, when looking at this product, and seeing it at Commodity Classic, obviously, anytime, farmers are looking at new products, the first thing that comes to their mind is what's it cost? So what are you guys looking at for one of these 40-foot booms?
Right, that's the $1 million question, but these are only $50,000 per unit. So we're very focused on how do we build something that is autonomous, hands-off, and then it can scale across large acreage, across corn and soybeans. So $50,000 is what they cost.
Well, that seems extremely reasonable and very competitive when it comes to equipment used for spraying. Taylor, here we go. Not to be corny, but why does Taylor Wetli fit right in with farmers?
Why do I fit right in with farmers?
Yep.
I think I fit in. Is this a rhetorical question? Or?
Remember, it's supposed to be a joke.
It's a joke. So, oh, okay.
Here's what
What's the answer?
Here's what they say. They say Taylor fits right in with farmers because Taylor speaks both row crop and robot. I didn't make that one up either, but I thought that's probably not too bad.
That's not bad. I may keep that in my back pocket there.
Yeah, there you go. Speaks row crop and robot. So, hey Taylor, it was a blast talking to you today. Again, like I said, I live in this area where all this stuff is happening, the infrastructure and the products and the equipment. So it was a pleasure to sit down and talk to someone who knows a lot about it. Keep up the good work, and if you're ever looking for some place to come out and just kind of prototype one of those things, I'm your place right here in Central Illinois. I'd love to see one going up and down the rows and just kind of get the neighbors talking a little bit.
Yeah, we'd love to.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Taylor. Appreciate everything.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it.